What is going on, you guys? Welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we're going to be doing some quality of life upgrades in the 4Runner that are going to make it more useful and more convenient. These couple of upgrades are going to be focused on the interior, the main of which is going to be this here, ATOTO S8 CarPlay radio. So I've actually heard quite a few good things about these radios and know quite a few people on the Toyota forums and things like that that actually run these. So when ATOTO reached out and wanted to do a video on one of these, I was super stoked on that. So that is what we're going to be doing today. We're going to go ahead and hop into an unboxing and see what all comes in the box with this radio, what kind of features it has, and then right after that, we're going to hop over to the truck and do the install. All right, real quick before we get into the unboxing, let's run down the feature set on this unit because there are a lot of them. It's quite a powerful unit. So this is a 7-inch display touchscreen, does CarPlay as well as Android Auto. It does this via Bluetooth or wired. So speaking of Bluetooth, this device features dual Bluetooth. This is going to allow you to connect multiple Bluetooth devices to it at the same time, which is good because this device can accept a lot of additional accessories, some of which ATOTO sells on their website. So one of these I'm actually going to be adding in this video, and that is the 720p rear backup camera. You can add all sorts of things in OBDII Bluetooth adapter to use with the Torque app that comes pre-installed on the device. You can add a dash cam, the backup camera, and even tpms sensors. The radio is going to come with all the wiring harnesses to not only run the radio, but some of these optional accessories such as the external cameras, RCA connectors for subwoofers and things like that. It's going to have a GPS as well as 4G antenna, as well as a wire harness that includes a slot to insert a 4G SIM card to use wireless service. Of course, you can do FM and AM radio with the device. You can connect to Wi-Fi networks with it. It's going to have the Google Play Store installed, so you can even add tons of apps to it to add to the functionality. So now let's go ahead, tear into the package, and see what comes with this thing. Alright, so as we get into this unboxing here, the first thing we're going to find on top is going to be our warranty information. Pretty standard stuff here. Then we're going to have a ton of different wire harnesses, and the nice thing about this radio is it is so feature rich. So all these different harnesses are going to correspond with some of those features and optional accessories that you can add onto this radio. So the harness we're looking at right here has a spot where you can insert a 4G SIM card and essentially hook that up to your cell provider and have service anywhere. Now this harness right here, I'm actually going to be using to install a rear view camera. Now this next one is the standard radio harness you may be used to if you ever installed an aftermarket radio. Just runs the power, the lights, the speakers, all that good sort of stuff. Now also in the box, there's going to be 2 of these RCA outputs if you're running a subwoofer or anything like that. That is what those are going to be for. I'm not going to be using those on this install. Now we're going to have a standard USB cable. This way we can plug in our phone and do CarPlay that way. We can do wired or wireless CarPlay with this radio. We're going to have a GPS antenna. Here we're going to have a microphone if you want to hook that up and use that as your microphone for doing phone calls in the car. Here we're going to have the 4G antenna. Now this next item is pretty cool. This radio comes with a couple of different screen projectors. It has a clear one as well as a matte. The screen on the radio is quite glossy, so if you find that you're getting a lot of glare, you can put on that matte screen protector and that should help cut down the glare. Finally, we have our radio mounting brackets. And last but not least, we have the device itself. I notice it is quite thin and a lot lighter than my factory radio. And this is going to be nice, especially with all of the wire harnesses that come with this. We're going to have a lot more room in the back of our dash to have all of that additional wiring live back there. The unit feels pretty solid in your hand. It feels well built, and I like the fact that it has physical buttons on it for the power and the volume and things like that. Alright, I am down in the truck now and I'm getting ready to start this installation. So the first thing we're going to need to do is remove some of these trim panels and obviously the center trim that surrounds the radio. So I'm going to go ahead and start doing all that, and then we'll see what we need to do from there. Alright, so my truck is a 99, so on the 99 and up with this digital climate control, it's pretty easy to get the trim off. You just, I just took out the two Phillips screws on the side of the center console, and then your shifter trim, that just pulls up, and once that is out of the way, the center trim, that also just pulls and pops off, but that center trim is extremely fragile. I literally just barely touched mine and it snapped in half, so I'm gonna have to get a new one of those. So yeah, third gen owners, beware. That stuff is very fragile, as you probably already know, but it is pretty easy to get it down to this point, and we have full access to the radio now.
Back City.
Alright, now that I got the radio out, I'm going to take a second to talk some 4Runner specific stuff here. So if you have a third gen and you're trying to install this radio in your 4Runner or any other aftermarket radio, I'm kind of learning as I go here, but I'm going to run through a couple things real quick that might be important, and then any parts of the stuff that I mention, I'm going to have linked in the description below, so you can grab those parts if you need, and hopefully that will help you out. So now that I got the stock radio out, the first thing that I noticed was I've got two antenna plugs on the back of the stock radio. Now my truck is a limited model, and I believe that is why I have the second antenna plug. So basically, from what I was reading, there is a secondary antenna in the rear glass on this truck. So if you got two plugs, you have a couple options. You can do what I'm going to do and buy the diversity antenna adapter plug, which basically will allow you, it's basically a splitter. It's going to allow you to plug both of your factory antenna plugs in to the adapter, so the smaller antenna plug and the larger one, and then it just basically splits into one normal sized antenna plug that you will then plug into the antenna port on the back of your new radio. Or you can just take your large antenna plug that in the back of your new radio and run it like that. If you don't use the FM or AM radio very much, you'll probably be fine with that. Some people have said they don't get as good reception with just using the one. So that is up to you. Alright, so my next order of business is probably going to be to start on some of this wiring. So I'm going to open up this radio box here in a little bit and pull out all the wiring harnesses and see what I need, what I don't need. But what you are going to need for sure is this radio connector adapter right here. This is Metra. I will definitely link this in the description below, but this is just going to make it really easy for you to plug into the factory radio harness. So basically, So there's connector plugs on one end. This is going to plug into the factory harness and then into the back of your new radio. And then on the other end, there are just bare wires that you're going to splice into your new radio harness. I also, since this radio has this capability, I think this is going to be really cool and really useful to have on this truck. I went ahead and picked up the ATOTO rear view camera that can work with these radios, so I'm going to install that as well. And when you buy this S8, it has all the wiring and all that sort of stuff to accept these accessories made for it. Alright, so as you saw right there, first thing I wanted to do was get the brackets mounted up to the radio and get it test fit in here, make sure mounting and everything is good, and it is very good. I am very happy with this. It fits perfectly in the factory bezel, and I'll show you, but what I did was I just used the brackets that come with the radio, attach those to the radio, and then you take your L brackets off your factory radio, use those factory L brackets and mount them up just like I showed you, and I'll show you exactly what holes I use so you can get this perfect fitment. First time I put it on there, it was a little bit too far back and there was a gap in the bezel, so I moved them slightly back, and I'll show you which holes I used. Alright, so we're looking at the right side here. The big bracket here, the big square, this is what comes in the ATOTO. Here you can see I have the factory L bracket just bolted to this. Let me pull this side off real quick so I can show you exactly which holes to use. Alright, so if you can see, I've outlined some of these holes in red. I know it looks like there's a lot of holes on here, but when you put your factory bracket up, it's only going to want to line up with a few of these holes. So you can put it up like this, and you'll notice this piece right here is overhanging the black, and all 4 holes line up. This is what I originally did, and it was sitting too far back. So if you just slide it back from this slightly, it's going to line up with those 3. This rear hole isn't going to line up, but I found that the 3 bolts is plenty enough to hold this, and as you saw, this fit perfectly. Alright, it is about 24 hours later. It has been a lot of work to get to this point, mostly because I was doing that rear backup camera, so that is pretty much what I focused on all of today. That just made the job pretty involved, just because of the fact that I have to run the wiring from the rear camera all the way to the front of the vehicle, and I'm doing it on my 4Runner, and it has the roll down rear window in the liftgate, so basically I had to fully take apart the liftgate, and here I'll show you where I snaked all these wires through. So the camera is going to be mounted to the license plate via a bracket. A neat camera wiring comes through and follows the OEM wire harness up through the inside of the liftgate here, through the rubber conduit and into the interior. Then I ran it along the upper roof rail plastic trim all the way to the front, drop down underneath the dash, and then it comes out right where the radio is. So now back up front here, this here is the harness for my backup camera. This yellow RCA is going to plug into a harness that plugs into the back of the radio, and then the red power wire and the pink signal wire, they go into the standard radio harness. I've got my Metro harness adapter here, all the wires are connected, and we're pretty much ready to go here. So I think I'm about to pull the radio over here, get it in, plug all this stuff up to the back of it, and make sure everything works.
for Georgia. I actually think they did an okay job in pass protection, if we're going to be honest.
Alright, you guys just saw that first startup. It's a few days later now. The install is complete. I've been driving the truck around with the radio for a few days now. And I've got to say, I really, really like it. This is honestly a game changer for this thing. So real quick, I want to touch on another 4Runner specific thing that I hadn't mentioned yet. So if your truck is anything like mine, and you're looking at your Metro harness and you see it's got 2 connectors on it, but you only have one plug that unplugged out of the back of your factory radio, go ahead, get your factory radio out. Then you're going to want to look a little bit below that. You might have this factory amp here. It's held in with a couple of screws. Remove those, pull it out of the way a little bit. There's going to be 2 plugs here. This is what you're actually going to plug into that Metro harness. So you're going to remove this unit entirely. This plug here is what originally plugged into the back of the stock radio. Unplug that, pull your stock radio out, pull this out, unplug these 2. And then you're going to wire your Metro harness to your radio harness that came with the ATOTO or any other aftermarket radio. You'll plug into these wires you disconnected from this amp, and you are good to go. Alright, now back to our ATOTO S8. On the initial startup you first saw, that was the first time I ever turned it on. It did take a second to power up. Now I want to show you how quick it is once it's set up. So here, I'm going to go ahead and put the key in, and I'll show you how quick it comes on. My power antenna works, by the way. And boom, here we go. Now this is the FM radio. We'll go to the home screen. Alright, so I'm going to walk through some of this real quick. There is a lot you can do with this radio. It is very powerful. There's a lot of different features. But here is your home screen. So when I first started up, it was on the FM radio, which is this right here. I hit the home button here to take me to this screen where I have all the apps and things like that. I can tap here in the middle to show all the apps that are currently on the device. You can click and hold and rearrange all this stuff. I've got mine set up here. The bottom left, this pink button here, the CarLink 2.0, that's what you're going to hit to get into your CarPlay or Android Auto. Like I said before, you can do this wired or wireless. You've also got your FM radio, your settings, lots of good stuff in here to check out. And you just notice how quick and snappy all this is as I'm tapping into stuff, tapping out, moving around. It is very snappy, very responsive, very fast and smooth. Here is our equalizer, our tuner for the radio, so you can tune it. And I noticed right away when I put this in and started playing music that it sounded a lot better over the factory radio, and you can even go in and tune this further. Alright, so one more thing I'm really excited about on this is it has the Torque app. And if you don't know what Torque is, it's basically just a real-time diagnostic app for your car. You can view performance statistics like your coolant temp and oil temp and RPM and all that sort of stuff. You can check fault codes and really a ton of different cool stuff. So basically what you'll do is you'll buy a Bluetooth OBDII adapter that plugs into your OBD port on your car. That will link up with the radio via Bluetooth, and then you'll be able to access all the information here in the Torque app on the radio. So I think that is really cool. And of course, you've got all this other stuff like the apps, YouTube, Chrome, Maps. You got a Google Play Store on here to download even more stuff. So you can connect via Wi-Fi on this thing and use those apps. Or like I said before, you can plug in a SIM card to this and use the wireless network to access that sort of stuff. For me, mostly what I'm going to do is connect my phone and use CarPlay and use apps like that way on it. Mostly going to be Maps, Spotify, music, stuff like that is what I'm going to be doing. So there's a quick little look at the functioning radio in the car. One last thing I want to show before we sign off of here is going to be that rear view camera I installed. It's working flawlessly. So earlier I'd mentioned a couple of upgrades to the interior of the 4Runner. This is the other one I completed recently. It is this ashtray delete from Snowbound Customs that actually allows you to install a USB port where the ashtray used to be. So I think this is super sweet for passengers in the back seat, as well as just having additional ways to charge phones and devices in the truck. So this thing is pretty easy to install. Snowbound Customs has a great video on their YouTube that I followed. You can check that out. But basically I have it wired to an accessory slot that is just on with the key. So when the key is on, the truck's on, this charger is active. When the key's turned off, this turns off as well. Alright, that's going to do it for this one. If you made it this far, thank you so much for watching. Hopefully this could help you install an aftermarket radio into your Toyota 4Runner. Additionally, hopefully you learned a good bit about the ATOTO S8. I know I'm really excited about it. After driving with it for a few days now, I am really enjoying having it. All the features and capability this thing has, especially for the price, I think is really hard to rival. So if you're interested in checking one of these things out for yourself, check out those links below. You can save 8% on it right now with my link and discount code below. Check those things out. But yeah, that is gonna do it. Curious if any of you other 3rd Gen 4Runner owners out there have added anything similar to your trucks, or what other gadgets and electronics have you added that have added to the functionality or just made it a more useful, more enjoyable, better truck. Let me know in the comments down below. But with all that being said, that is gonna do it for this one. Thank you so much for watching. Have an awesome week, and we will see you in the next one.